Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Tian Yu. Coming up in this edition, senior U.S. officials have urged Israel to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen says attacks on international shipping continue in the Red Sea. Participants at an auto conference between China and Germany have expressed concerns for the planned EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. We begin in the Middle East. The Joe Biden administration says senior U.S. officials have urged Israel to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza within the next 30 days. The U.S. Secretaries of State and Defense have co-signed a letter to their Israeli counterparts. The 30-day period given by the United States means potential consequences if Israel does not heed the warnings. There has been no comment from Israel. This comes as Israeli forces have ramped up offensives in northern Gaza. Rami Almagari has more from Han Yunis.
This almost happens every day in Gaza these times. The average of the death toll every day is estimated from 20 to 30 people killed. Many of them are women and children inside their homes. Actually, the Israeli army says that it targeted 30 locations in Gaza. Many of these locations are homes populated by people. Inside their homes, people are killed. Many of them are children and women, like what happened in Khan Yunis at Abu Taima family in Khan Yunis. 10 family members, including women and children, have been killed. Another strike in Nusayrat claimed the lives of 5 people, including women and children. The people say they can't go to a safer place. They don't know where to go. This is true about the situation in Gaza, because Gaza now is restricted to the southern regions where the Israeli army attacks or army operations take place, and only 11 square kilometers is the size of the displacement for tents and for the population to be safe. But in the meantime, they can't have safety, they can't be safe because of the intensity of the Israeli air strikes that happen out of a sudden, occur out of a sudden every time and then and every place in Gaza.
That was Rami Almagari reporting. The Israeli military has resumed strikes in southern Beirut after sparing the Lebanese capital for a few days. It is also the first attack since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu again dismissed calls for a ceasefire in Lebanon. Yasser Hakim reports from Beirut.
We woke up to the sound of an explosion and we didn't know where it was coming from. Then the smoke has now given us the lead. This is the southern neighborhood of Beirut, or southern district, is known as the stronghold for Hezbollah and has been targeted several times, or many times, since Israel started its onslaught on Lebanon. But just that this is the first time since last Friday that Israel has hit Beirut, the capital. We're on Wednesday now. Israel has been focusing on southern Lebanon and areas around the east and west of the country. But now, obviously, it's back to Beirut, as Israeli Prime Minister has warned before that he will be hitting, just a day ago, that he will be hitting everywhere in Lebanon, including Beirut.
That was Yasser Hakim reporting. Also on the Middle East, the United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen says attacks on international shipping have continued in the Red Sea. The UN Security Council met on Tuesday as Yemen remains caught in rising regional tensions. Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
Houthi fighters in Yemen have launched nearly 100 attacks on ships in the Red Sea since November. The latest incident this month when they attacked 2 Liberian-flagged tankers. The armed group says it's acting in solidarity with Palestinians targeting vessels linked to Israel. But the attacks, together with the arbitrary detention of 13 UN staff and an unfolding humanitarian crisis, has the United Nations concerned. The world body says it rejects all allegations leveled against its staff, reiterating that UN personnel should never be arrested or detained because of their work. It also says the military escalation in the region keeps intensifying and risks spiraling out of control.
I want to underscore again that despite the broader regional conflict, peace in Yemen is still achievable, and we must remain focused on making this a reality. This council carries the hopes of the global community that conflicts can be resolved through international collaboration and diplomacy.
The situation in Yemen remains connected to the tensions in the Middle East, with many UN Security Council members calling for a de-escalation. China remains resolute, saying the Security Council must stand united and take measures to stop what it calls reckless military adventures.
The situation in Yemen is closely linked to the situation in the Middle East. The year-long conflict in Gaza has already caused an unprecedented humanitarian disaster and is increasingly dragging the entire region into the quagmire of war and conflict. At this critical moment, the situation must not be allowed to deteriorate further and go down a road of no return.
The United States has repeatedly struck Houthi targets in Yemen since January in response to its attacks in the Red Sea. The US told the Council that it stands firm in its belief that the UN and the international community cannot continue business as usual and must find a durable end to the conflict there.
That was Jody Jacobs reporting. In Europe, the 8th Sino-German Automotive Conference is underway in Munich. The annual event serves as a platform to exchange the development trends of the automotive industry and promote technological innovation partnerships. But concerns are rising among some German automotive manufacturers and suppliers following the European Commission's decision to slap duties of up to 35% on imported Chinese-made electric vehicles. Natalie Carney has more.
The theme of this Congress is carbon neutrality and mobility of the future. However, conversations have been steering towards the potential impact of the European Commission's decision to slap duties of up to 35% on imported Chinese-made electric vehicles. Having invested billions of dollars in China, German automotive manufacturers and suppliers have been apprehensive about these tariffs. In his push to get the German government to vote against them, BMW CEO Oliver Zipse said the tariffs, quote, catalyze retaliatory response from China, thereby deepening the rift. That concern has been echoed by many taking part here.
Germany has so much business in China for the last decades, and now China is moving forward, becoming technology leader in many fields, and the main message or takeaway is always cooperation instead of confrontation. That is relatively clear. You can see nobody likes the tariffs.
And the sad story for both sides. I don't believe it's only for China. It's also in the European consumer cannot get a cheaper car. Of course, I also see the German automotive industry also against this activity.
In line with the theme of this Congress, discussions have also touched on how Chinese EVs can help the European Union achieve its green goals, transitioning away from internal combustion engines by 2035. And that's a major force driving cooperation, regardless of what comes next from the ongoing trade dispute.
That was Natalie Carney reporting on the 8th Sino-German Automotive Conference in Munich. In Asia, a report from the International Energy Agency says China is set to contribute nearly 60% of all renewable energy capacity installed worldwide by 2030. Part of this growth comes from revamping oil refineries to produce hydrogen energy. Huang Fei has more.
Remember this moment at the Winter Olympics 2 years ago? Instead of a blazing cauldron, Beijing opted for a small flame powered by hydrogen. It was a bold design choice to cut carbon emissions, and the hydrogen came from an unlikely source, Sinopec Yanshan Petrochemical, the only oil refinery in Beijing.
Our refinery produces hydrogen as a byproduct. We purify it to extract clean hydrogen, which is then used in fuel cell batteries. Storing hydrogen is tricky, so the real challenge lies in quality control, testing the gas in real time during production.
Hydrogen is often seen as the clean fuel of the future because, like oil and gas, it can be burned for energy. But unlike fossil fuels, it only releases water as a byproduct.
This makes it an ideal eco-friendly energy source for cargo trucks and indoor vehicles, like forklifts. Charging takes just 2 minutes, and they can run for 6 hours.
Petrol vehicles are noisy and emit harmful fumes, which is bad for warehouse workers. But the main demand for hydrogen vehicles is in heavy-duty trucks and buses.
China's expertise in mass-producing clean energy is helping to lower the cost of hydrogen devices around the world. But the country is also showcasing how to effectively handle industrial wastewater. This wetland park is the perfect example. We're standing right near a nature reserve. It's really turning the waste of a petrochemical plant into a thriving ecosystem.
Thanks to an advanced treatment process introduced in 2017, the water entering nearby rivers is so clean that it has become home to over 140 species of wildlife.
We opened this wetland to the public last year, offering a free space where people can see our conservation efforts. With the improved environment, we've seen not only more kinds of birds, but also larger flocks. It costs our company over 5 million yuan each year to maintain this park. It's our way of giving back to society.
According to the International Energy Agency, progress in the hydrogen sector still falls short of global climate goals. Policymakers and developers must collaborate to expand its use, lower costs, and establish clear regulations that attract further investment.
That was Huang Fei reporting from Beijing. Finally, in South America, Colombia will host the 16th conference of the parties to the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, or COP16, beginning next week. The last conference was in 2022 in Montreal, Canada, where the parties signed the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. This set global targets to safeguard biodiversity. But as countries consider how to reach their 2030 targets, private businesses are also leading the way in showing how everyone can build a plan towards a sustainable global economy. Michelle Baggy reports from Bogota.
Colombian company Fibtex creates small to large-scale packaging for a variety of export goods. Commercial manager Juliana Ramirez says 5 years ago the company began to reflect on the total environmental impact of the company's operations, from the pre-production to the disposal of their packaging.
The majority of our packaging leaves the country as it is used in coffee exports to protect the quality of the coffee. But we began to notice that after use, the U.S. coffee roasters were having trouble assuring their proper disposal. Although the plastic is 100% recyclable, recycling isn't always easy.
Fibtex then began actively looking to offset those environmental impacts. First, by reaching plastic neutrality, which is when a business recovers as much plastic as it produces. Eventually, Fibtex aims to be climate positive by 2030, removing more carbon than it emits with initiatives like reforestation. In 2022, countries attending the previous conference signed the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which set up 23 global targets to reach by 2030. Consumers can do their part by looking for product certifications like B Corp. Participating companies share a verified commitment to practices that will help sustain the environment. Fibtex is a B Corporation and has many corporate allies. Ramirez says Fibtex has recycled more than 90,000 kilos of plastic and has planted and cultivated around 30,000 trees.
We tell our clients, buy more bags, because with every ton of plastic I sell to you, I will plant and maintain 25 trees. But if you give me 1 ton of plastic to recycle, I will plant a total of 40 trees. So this has been a great incentive, and we begin to create a culture and a community through B Corporations network alliances.
Fibtex is setting an example for companies that are making sustainability plans and turning them into action.
That was Michelle Baggy reporting. Now recapping today's headlines. Senior U.S. officials have urged Israel to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen says attacks on international shipping continue in the Red Sea. Participants at an auto conference between China and Germany have expressed concerns for the planned EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports, and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Tian Yu. Thank you for listening.